Welcome to English Store. The soft snowfall drifted through the open doors of St. Catherine's Church as 35-year-old Jonathan Hayes sat alone in one of the back pews, seeking the quiet solitude that had become his refuge from the emptiness of his successful but lonely life. As the chief executive officer of Hayes Industries, Jonathan commanded boardrooms and managed millions of dollars. But the wealth and power had never filled the void left by his failed marriage and the family he had never been able to have. The church was nearly empty on this weekday afternoon, with only a few other people scattered among the wooden pews. The colored light from the stained glass windows cast gentle patterns across the floor, and the peaceful atmosphere provided Jonathan with a rare moment of calm in his otherwise hectic schedule. As Jonathan sat in contemplative silence, he became aware of a small commotion near the front of the church. A little girl who appeared to be about 4 years old was moving from pew to pew, her red velvet dress bright against the muted tones of the church interior. Her blonde curls bounced as she walked, and she seemed to be looking for something or someone. Jonathan watched as the child approached various people in the congregation, speaking to them quietly before moving on to the next person. There was something both determined and desperate in her movements that caught his attention and stirred something protective in his chest. When the little girl reached Jonathan's pew, she stopped and looked up at him with eyes that held a maturity far beyond her years. "Excuse me, mister," she said in a voice that was polite but tinged with sadness. "Are you here by yourself, too?" Jonathan felt his heart clench at the innocent question. "Yes, I am. What about you, sweetheart? Where is your family?" The little girl climbed up onto the pew beside him without invitation, settling her small body next to his with the kind of trust that only children possess. "I do not have a family like other kids. I live at the children's home with Miss Margaret, but she is sick today, so I came here by myself." Jonathan looked at this brave little girl who had walked to church alone and felt a mixture of admiration and concern. "What is your name, sweetheart?" "I am Grace," she replied, smoothing down her dress carefully. "Miss Margaret says I should always look nice when I come to God's house." "Grace is a beautiful name," Jonathan said gently. "I am Jonathan. Can I ask why you came to church today?" Grace's expression grew serious as she considered his question. "I come here to talk to God about getting a family. All the other kids at the home have people who visit them or who might adopt them, but nobody ever comes to see me." Jonathan felt something crack open in his chest as he understood the loneliness that had brought this child to seek comfort in an empty church. "Grace, I am sure there are people who would love to have you as part of their family." Grace shook her head with the matter-of-fact acceptance that children sometimes show when facing difficult truths. "Miss Margaret says I am too old now. People want babies, not big kids like me. But I keep praying that maybe God will send me a papa who needs a little girl as much as I need a family." Jonathan looked at this remarkable child who was facing rejection with such grace and determination and felt his heart open in ways it had not in years. "Grace, what would you say to a papa if God sent you one?" Grace turned to face him fully, her small hands reaching out to take his much larger ones. "I would tell him that I know how to be good, and I know how to be quiet when he needs to work, and I know how to make him happy when he is sad." The simple honesty of her words brought tears to Jonathan's eyes. "Grace, those are wonderful things to offer someone." Grace studied Jonathan's face with the intensity of a child making an important decision. "Mr. Jonathan, do you have a little girl at home?" "No, Grace. I do not have any children." Grace's eyes brightened with a hope that was both beautiful and heartbreaking to witness. "Do you think maybe God sent you here today so I could find you?" Jonathan felt his breath catch as he realized what this precious child was asking. "Grace, what do you mean?" Grace slipped off the pew and positioned herself directly in front of Jonathan, her small hands still holding his. Mr. Jonathan, I do not have a papa and you do not have a little girl. Maybe we are supposed to take care of each other. She paused, gathering her courage for the most important question of her young life. Mr. Jonathan, can you be my daddy? Forever. I promise I will be the best daughter in the whole world. Jonathan felt tears streaming down his face as he looked at this brave little girl who was offering him everything she had to give in exchange for the family they both desperately needed. Grace, that is the most beautiful offer anyone has ever made me. He knelt down so he could look directly into her eyes. But being a daddy is a very big responsibility. Are you sure you want someone like me? Grace nodded vigorously. I am sure. I have been praying for a papa who has kind eyes and a gentle voice, and you have both of those things. 3 months later, after navigating the complex adoption process with the help of social workers who were amazed by the obvious connection between Jonathan and Grace, they stood together in the same church where they had first met. This time, however, the pews were filled with friends, colleagues, and staff from the children's home who had come to witness Grace's official adoption ceremony. Pastor Williams spoke about how God sometimes answers prayers in unexpected ways, bringing together hearts that need each other even when they come from very different worlds. Grace showed us today that families are not always formed through birth, but sometimes through the courage to ask for what we need and the wisdom to recognize when our prayers are being answered. The pastor said as Jonathan and Grace exchanged rings that symbolized their new father-daughter bond. During the reception in the church hall, Grace stood on a chair to address the gathered guests with the confidence of a child who finally knew where she belonged. I want to thank everyone for coming to my adoption party, Grace said, her voice clear and joyful. I prayed every day for God to send me a daddy, and he sent me the best one in the whole world. Now, Mr. Jonathan is going to be my papa forever and ever. Jonathan lifted Grace into his arms, marveling at how this 4-year-old child had transformed. His understanding of what it meant to be successful and fulfilled. Grace taught me that the most important question we can ask is not what can I achieve, but who can I love. She showed me that real wealth comes from having someone who needs you as much as you need them. 2 years later, at Grace's 6th birthday party held in the garden of their new home, Jonathan reflected on how a chance encounter in a church pew had given him the family he had never dared to hope for. Grace, now thriving in school and surrounded by friends, ran over to him with a drawing she had made of their family. Daddy, I drew this picture of us at church on the day we found each other. Jonathan looked at the crayon drawing that showed 2 stick figures holding hands in what was clearly meant to be a church with snow falling around them and colored lights streaming through windows. Grace, this is beautiful. Do you remember what you were thinking that day when you asked if I could be your daddy? Grace looked up at him with the same direct gaze she had used that snowy afternoon. I was thinking that you looked lonely like me, and maybe lonely people are supposed to help each other not be lonely anymore. Jonathan hugged his daughter close, understanding that her childlike wisdom had been exactly right. The lonely CEO and the orphaned little girl had indeed been meant to find each other, not through business plans or formal arrangements, but through the simple courage to ask for love and the grace to recognize it when it appeared. Sometimes, Jonathan thought, the most important meetings happen not in boardrooms, but in quiet churches, where a child's honest question can change 2 lives forever, and where the promise to love someone forever can be made with nothing more than snow falling through stained glass windows and the faith that some bonds are strong enough to last a lifetime.